Beyond the massive military operations that took place during World War II, there were also others that only involved a small group of motivated men trained to perform the most dangerous feats and exploits. However, even these small units required the approval of the highest ranks of the war machinery to execute their plans and actions. On only one occasion during the war did a single individual carry out an operation that could have marked a turning point in the armed conflict. But who was this man? And what happened when he decided, at his own risk, to cross enemy lines to deliver a peace proposal from Nazi Germany directly to Winston Churchill? That man was Rudolf Hess, once a prominent figure in the Nazi Party and the Third Reich, who staged one of the most mysterious and bewildering episodes of World War II. Between the summer and October of 1940, the Luftwaffe had bombed British cities and air bases to force England to surrender in what became known as the Battle of Britain. A solo flight over enemy territory aboard a Messerschmitt bearing Nazi emblems seemed suicidal, but Hess, who was deeply disturbed by the war with the United Kingdom, had a plan. Using the Duke of Hamilton as an intermediary, he would attempt to negotiate peace with the British government. By May 10th, Hess was far removed from his past glories. His once brilliant career had plummeted. His close association with Hitler, whom he had loyally supported, befriended, advised, and served as secretary since 1920, had faded. After Hitler's rise to power in 1933, Hess was rewarded by being named his successor and second in command of the party. But after the war began, something had changed. Hess's star had dimmed. He no longer held the influence he once wielded, and Hitler, who some speculated began to see him as mentally unstable, had replaced him as successor with Hermann Göring, head of the Luftwaffe. Additionally, Hess's secretary, Martin Bormann, had turned his back on him to become Hitler's personal secretary, thus becoming one of the most powerful men in Germany. After a final review of the weather reports for Germany and the North Sea, Hess took off at 17:45 hours in his specially prepared Messerschmitt Bf 110, departing from Augsburg-Hounstetten airfield. It was his last attempt at the mission after previous efforts had been aborted due to mechanical issues or bad weather. Wearing a leather flight suit with the rank of captain, he carried with him money, toiletries, a flashlight, a camera, maps, charts, a collection of 28 different medications, as well as dextrose tablets to ward off fatigue, and a variety of homeopathic remedies. After 3 hours of flight over the North Sea, Hess approached the coast of Northumberland and the chain of radar stations monitoring incoming enemy aircraft. At 22:08, the Otterkop station detected the Messerschmitt entering British airspace, a fact soon confirmed by other stations. 2 RAF Spitfires, already in the air, were sent to intercept him but failed to locate the intruder. The Royal Observer Corps, ROC, however, was able to track the flight's path point by point, from the moment it crossed the English coast to when, at 22:30, it reached the Scottish border. Hess had planned the flight meticulously from his office in Munich and had a mental image of Deville House, his intended destination, firmly etched in his mind. But night had fallen, and running low on fuel, tracked by additional ROC posts and pursued by RAF Spitfires, Hess climbed to 1,800 meters and parachuted out of the plane at 23:06. He injured his foot either while ejecting or upon landing. The plane crashed at 23:09, approximately 19 kilometers west of Deville House. The first person to encounter the mysterious foreigner was a local farmer named David MacLeod. MacLeod rushed out of his house just as the pilot landed and began to be dragged by his parachute. He reached Hess, helped him to his feet, and asked if he was German.
Yes, I am Captain Alfred Horn. I bring an important message for the Duke of Hamilton.
Hess replied in English. He had hurt his foot, and MacLeod helped him into his home, where his mother offered a cup of tea, which the stranger politely declined. MacLeod contacted the local Home Guard unit, which escorted the prisoner to their headquarters in Busby.
To mark the birthday of the Home Guard, a unit drawn...
He was then taken to the police station in Giffnock, arriving after midnight, where he was searched and his possessions confiscated. He repeatedly requested to meet with the Duke of Hamilton during his interrogation. He was subsequently taken into custody at Maryhill Barracks in Glasgow. By then, some of his captors suspected his true identity, although he continued to insist that his name was Horn. At 10:20 a.m. the next day, the Duke of Hamilton learned, to his great surprise, that a German pilot was urgently requesting to speak with him. The German introduced himself to the Duke as Rudolf Hess, explaining that he was on a peace mission to end the war between Germany and the United Kingdom. After the meeting, Hamilton examined the wreckage of the Messerschmitt and returned to Turnhouse, where he contacted Winston Churchill, with whom he would meet in London the next day along with members of the War Cabinet. Churchill sent Hamilton to Foreign Affairs expert Yvonne Kirkpatrick, who had previously met Hess, to identify the prisoner, who had been moved to Buchanan Castle. That night, Hess prepared extensive notes for the meeting, in which he spoke in detail about Hitler's expansion plans and the need for the United Kingdom to allow the Nazis free rein in Europe in exchange for retaining their overseas possessions. Despite subsequent meetings between Hess, Hamilton, and Kirkpatrick, the British did not appear inclined to take Hess seriously, considering him an eccentric and peculiar figure. The day after Hess's departure, his aide, Karl Heinz Pinch, delivered a letter addressed to Hitler detailing Hess's intentions to initiate peace negotiations with the British. Upon reading it, Hitler erupted in rage, heard throughout the Berghof, and ordered the arrest of some members of Hess's inner circle, fearing that a putsch or coup d'etat was underway. Hitler feared that his allies, Italy and Japan, might see Hess's actions as a secret attempt to negotiate peace with the British. He contacted Mussolini specifically to assure him otherwise. Hence, he ordered the German press to portray Hess as a madman who had flown to Scotland independently without his knowledge or consent. Subsequent reports from German newspapers described Hess as deluded and disturbed, highlighting that his mental health had been affected by injuries suffered during World War I. Members of the regime, like Göring and Goebbels, believed this only worsened matters, arguing that if he were indeed mentally ill, he should never have held an important position in the government or the party. Hitler stripped Hess of all titles and ranks and secretly ordered him to be shot on sight if he ever returned. He also abolished the position of Deputy Führer, assigning Hess's former duties to Bormann, who was given the title of Chief of the NSDAP Chancellery. Meanwhile, Hitler initiated the Sonderaktion Hess, a wave of hundreds of arrests of astrologers, healers, and occultists, which took place around June 9th. This campaign was part of a propaganda effort by Goebbels and others to denigrate Hess and scapegoat practitioners of occultism, as Hess himself was an occultist. While this unfolded, Hess remained in England as a prisoner of war until the end of the war in 1945. Although Churchill ordered that he be treated well, Hess attempted suicide on several occasions during his captivity. Psychiatrists Henry Dix and John Rollin Rees, who treated him during this period, noted that although he was not insane, he was mentally unstable, with tendencies toward hypochondria and paranoia. Hess claimed he was being poisoned and deprived of sleep. He insisted on swapping his dinner with that of one of his guards and tried to send food samples for analysis. He also alleged he suffered from amnesia. After Germany's unconditional surrender on May 8, 1945, Hess was ordered to appear before the International Military Tribunal and was transported to Nuremberg on October 10th of that year. Hess was found guilty on 2 counts: crimes against peace, planning, and preparing for a war of aggression, and conspiracy with other German leaders to commit crimes. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, being the only high-ranking Nazi official to serve the full sentence until his death on August 17, 1987 in Spandau Prison, Berlin.